Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop. Occasionally I get a call from or a text or an email from somebody wanting me to turn such and such, and I got one recently, and I want to use that as an opportunity to kind of share with you how I dealt with it and also show you how I turned it. Because if you're a wood turner and you're going to be turning a while, you'll probably get some of these kinds of contacts as well. So somebody in the local area, local meaning, you know, I live in Atlanta, metropolitan statistical area of I think close to 6 million people. But generally driving distance. Had a contacted me about turning a spindle, you know, about 16 inches long and 3 inches wide. Want to know if I could do it, and you know, finding a production turner is getting harder and harder. There aren't that many around, and I'm not really a production turner. I'm a hobbyist turner, but occasionally I'll take on these kind of projects if they'll meet my criteria, and I'll kind of walk through those with you. First of all, is there a time limit? Because you know, I had a job and I had deadlines, and I figured a bad day in the shop is better than a good day in the office. So when I retired, you know, I wanted to reduce the number of deadlines. So it doesn't have to. It needs to be out there, and not anything that's going to put me in a cramp. Probably more importantly, is there something about the turning that interests me? Is it a bit of a challenge? Is it something new or different that I might learn from? Do I have to do some research? So all those factor into it as well. One of the larger challenges is getting the wood that I'm for the blank going to be a challenge. Sometimes that's the major challenge, and you know, yes, I could drive all the way across town over to from Cumming to Woodstock, over an hour drive to get to a lumber yard that imports lumber and has a wide choice. But you know, an hour each way is not something you can easily charge for, and it doesn't pay to have to buy a 10-foot post that might be 4 inches square if I only need 18 inches. You can't charge the client for the whole thing, and you know, wood's expensive nowadays when you're talking about a piece of cherry or walnut or maple, what have you. And I got rid of my jointer and planer. Those device woodworking tools are very handy if you're doing a glue up for some projects where you're creating a blank from smaller pieces of dimensional lumber you might be able to get your hands on. But that's kind of general woodworking. When I got exposed to wood turning, it's like, yeah, this is a lot more fun than woodworking. So I'm a wood turner, and I'm not real interested in trying to glue up a blank. The other thing besides the time limit is how long will the project take? I've got other things going on in my life outside of wood turning as well as wood turning, and I don't want to take on a project that's going to take me a week or two. I'm not interested in turning 100 balusters, for example. And then the last consideration is hassles. Is the client someone that's going to be easy to work with? How difficult it's going to be to get the sample if I'm going to copy it or get an exact drawing? Is it clear that they are going to follow through with it? Either you got to ask for money up front or be trusting. So you know, are they really committed to this project? Are they going to second guess you or nitpick some aspect about it? So I don't like hassles. And some of that's just kind of a read on the client. Is that somebody that's easy to deal with, or you know you can deliver easily and make them happy? So for this project, the client sent me a picture. I asked him to send me a picture so I can evaluate whether I wanted to take it on or not. And I looked at that and I thought, well, maybe, but getting a piece of wood that size may be a challenge. So I went down to my shop. Turns out I did happen to have a large post of cherry, about 4 inches square, that would be suitable for the project, and I was able to research what that blank would cost and price it out for the client, in addition to my labor charge. From the picture, I gathered it was guessed it was mahogany, and when they delivered, the fellow that's doing the refinishing of this 4-poster bed that this is a component of, he told me yes, it is mahogany, but he could certainly when he restores the bed, he can match the color of a blank from cherry that I'm going to use, because I don't have a block of mahogany, and one that size is not easy to get hold of. So the fellow that's doing the actual restoration, not the client, brings over the spindle, drops it off, and I measured, of course, and it's exactly 16 inches long. So I transfer that measurement to this block of cherry before I cut it. Because in this case, I wanted exactly the right length. So let me show you the steps I'm going to go through. First thing I do is make sure I've got everything I need all together, so I don't have to be fumbling around. Once I start, I just want to keep on going. Also makes it easier to do in a video. So I have my spindle to take the measurements from. I have my cherry blank. Now I think about, how am I going to chuck this? It looks like it could be simply a spindle between centers project, which I think mostly it is, but these ends are fairly narrow, both of them. So I've got to take into consider what kind of live center and what kind of drive center am I going to use. And so what I've decided to do is, first I'm going to initially put it between centers, and I want something that'll really bite the wood, because this is a big heavy chunk of wood. So I'm going to use this Record Power multi-tooth 1 1/4 inch spring loaded as the drive, and on the other end to hold it securely I'm going to use their Coronet Falcon Universal Live Center kit, and I'm going to start off with, instead of the 60-degree cone, I want a really strong grip, so I'm going to use their multi-tooth tip for this, and then I can switch it as I get near the end of the project. So there's that out of the way. The other thing I'm going to need, I'll get these out of the way, I'm going to need some calipers, so I have those handy. And then I think about the tools that I'm going to use, and what I'm going to be using is beating and parting tool for taking these deep cuts. I'll be using actually a spindle roughing gouge, which I didn't show. So I'll have a spindle roughing gouge to get it round and for making this deep sweeping cove through here. And then I've got a regular parting tool, which I may or may not need, and I'm going to be using a spindle gouge, and I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch, because larger than 2 inches, I think 3/8 is going to be a little better fit for me. But if I need to get into doing some smaller detail, I've got my handy workhorse 3/8 inch Doug Thompson spindle gouge. I also have a 3/8 inch detail tool that if I need to go deep into an area, I can get into it in an area. Let's get started. This is the time with a large block like this, I find it easier to mark centers with a jig rather than trust my eye, and my typical approach of using a fixed finger, it's a little harder to get one out as deep as I'd like it to go to get that smaller target. So I'm using the 1 1/4 inch sprung multi-tooth live center, which is great for holding a large blank of wood, and you don't have to hammer it in with a mallet because of the multiple teeth will grab it. And it's also got a tension spring, so when you press it up, it'll center it, but it doesn't really have to go into the wood. The other thing that's nice about that spring is it comes with a 4mm adjustment. You can just put this Allen wrench in there and you can adjust the tension to make it softer or easier as you like, and you just pop it in place. Before you mount the blank start turning, you need to look for any imperfections or anything that you need to work around for. So for example, this one has a little branch knot, so I had to see which end this needs to be on so I could minimize the impact of that. So I take my first measurement because I want to get this whole thing down to this size, and that's the same dimension. I've got 3/4 of an inch to go. So I'm going to chuck this up. So as a result, I'm going to put a chuck tenon on here. Then we'll chuck it up and get the rest of it. Alright, so let's make a chuck tenon on this end. It's a dovetail. mark this feature right here and know that I can go down here, and on this one I can go down here, and then I'll worry about getting this and this side to the right dimension. So I'm just going to come in here with a beating and parting tool. Now I'll worry about getting this to the right diameter, this to the right diameter, and that's going to be that diameter. So I've still got a ways to go. I've got probably 3/4 of an inch, so I can probably come down here even further. And here. Okay. Now I'll go back to getting this the right diameter. I've got it. For projects you do a lot of, you tend to make a storyboard. For example, on this one on a 14-inch bowl gouge handle. But this is one-off, so I'm just going to measure it very carefully, feature by feature. So one of the first features I'm going to mark off is this fillet. It turns out it's 1/8 of an inch. So I've got the caliper set for that. So let's go ahead and part down until the calipers fit. Yes, I'll line this up. You know, the diameters are not as critical. Your eye can't pick up big difference in diameter, but when you got these things vertical like this, it will pick up where this is compared to another one. But maybe on a bedpost 6 foot away from the other, you know, even that's going to be a challenge. It is right there. I think calipers are probably to a production turner what clamps are to a flat worker. Alright, let's just size the rest of it to that. So again, we're going to take our beating and parting tool, bring it down to visually close to that. Just about there. Okay. Just a little bit more to go. And to get a little smoother cut, maybe I will use a spindle gouge to get in there. If you're liking this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you very much. Back to the video. Beating and parting tool actually do that final cleanup, kind of acting as a skew. Get a nice clean shoulder. Now I need to figure out where where the thickest part of this is and when it starts to turn, and it appears that it's in thirds. So that's the thickest part right there. So I'll round down from here and I'll round down from there, but gradually. So I don't want to touch that pencil mark. And I'm just turning a big bead on this side. That looks good. Now I continue this down on this side. So once you mark the key locations and get the diameter, you do the rest of the shape by eye, and it helps if you can orient the piece within your eye, within your vision lined up to kind of follow that curve by eye. It helps when you're turning a bead on the right hand side that sometimes you line your finger on it, it just kind of follows where your finger is going to go. So again, I'm not going to damage this line. I'm going to pick up the cut here and bring it on down. Speed, I'm at about 1500. I got this down. This is much smaller than the tip of this, so I need to switch out to a different center. So I'm going to change out the tip to a cone center. Pop that in place. And I don't need to be too concerned about a little damage here, because in the bed frame, let me show you a picture of what that bed frames look like and where this is going to go. There's going to be a piece that fits over this. The finish is worn away here, so it's going to be covered, so I don't need to worry about leaving a little dimple in it. I'll switch to a smaller tool rest so I can get in closer. And now I get a little better support. Than 5/8, and I'll use that to initially size the end too. Okay. I know it's going to be smaller than this, but that gives me something for my eye to shoot for. I think I'm just going to go back to the spindle rough and gouge and work on that slope. Like I'm getting some pulled up grain. I think the grain must be swirling through here, so I'm going to have to be real careful. I think I'm going to switch to 3/8 inch spindle gouge. Getting pretty close. I got some rough areas. I think I might try to use the skew to do some cleanup here. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, and then cut. The next critical dimension is this this flat round area, and I've got that caliper size to that, but I need to bring that parting tool down through there. So I've got it marked here. we got to bring down this entire section down to that. So go back to spindle roughing gouge and hog off this wood. Oh, maybe 1/8 of an inch. About right. Next I'm going to measure this distance to the narrowest part of the spool here and get that sized properly. And yeah, we'll do that. I think we'll do that. I think we're going to go ahead and turn this 1/2 bead, so let me get that dimension. Go back to my trusty 3/8 inch spindle gouge. And finger on top, over the tool, ride the bevel, get the handle to the cuts. That's just about right. Okay, so now we're going to slice in and start down with a cove right there. We've got to be very careful on our entry cut. Now let's take this down. Make adjustments for that. So let's bring this down into that and bring this down into that. And I'm just going to use the spindle roughing gouge to kind of hog out some wood. Alright, now I'm going to switch back to 1/2 inch gouge. I'll refine this after I get the key dimensions set over here. Now it's time to hog this down to this size. So I've got the calipers there. I'm just going to rough it on one side. Okay. Now we use the spindle roughing gouge to start hogging off some wood here. So I take the next fillet and measure it from the bottom. That's right here. Go ahead and mark that. And then I get the dimension of that fillet. And then we use the beading tool to bring that down. Now let's go ahead and finish that slope from here down through here. Scoop as a cove. And we marked the thickest area of this large bead here, and and where it tapers down from. So we'll start that. Bring it right into the fillet. Make the tool right about it. Okay, that's good. That's about good. Alright, so now we're going to start bringing this down. We're going to have a little fillet here. Don't see that very well. Now, in order to get down in there, let's go ahead and round this thing down. There's the dimension we're coming down to. Start off with our 1/2 inch. We're going to pick up the cut from here and bring it down, but let's take away all this waste right here. Okay, I need to take this down just a little bit right here. Not much. And now we're going to make that cove between those two fillets. I'm going to use my 3/8 inch spindle gouge. The bottom fillet is a little bit wider than it has been, so we're just going to gradually ease into it. So you come in here, slice, come up the middle, come up the middle, do the same thing here. Take the entry cut, drop the handle, just the opposite of a bead. Just about right. Almost nothing that a little sandpaper won't take care of. We're going to crisp up the little detail right here in the corner, and we're going to do that with skewer. Just make a tiny little crisp right there. Now this we're going to have to deal with between the centers, but I'm going to go ahead and sand everything we got so far before I put it between centers to take off the chuck tenon and bring the size down. Alright, now we're going to turn it around so we can get the bottom. Okay, as I get ready to reverse this, this end is right at 11 millimeter. That is too small. Certainly that's too large for the kind of normal drive centers that come with your lathe. So you need to come up with some other way of holding it. If you had to do this and you didn't have the drive center that I do, you could always make some type of jam chuck with a hole in it that would fit that would wedge into that. But it's easier if you have a live center. In this case, I'm using a 10mm multi-tooth sprung chuck by Record Power, and just pop that in. For the live center, I'm going to switch back to that multi-tooth. Pop that in place. Because we had it centered before, I've got a little hole. And we'll bring up the tailstock, and it's got a hole in it as well. So bring up the tailstock, but don't put too much pressure on it. So we have two key dimensions we're going to be turning now. We're doing this dimension, and then of course we're doing this dimension. And as we do this, we've got to make sure to concave this so when it does sit in the bed, it will be flat. So we'll take this down with our beading and parting tool. Sealing cut. So I mark the depth here. And now we can continue to take this down. I use a 3/8" spindle gouge. Get this corner back a little bit. Round this over just the tiniest little bit. Now we're going to go ahead and sand this, and then we'll take this down. This block is just a little too heavy to drive with that small spring point without drilling a hole, so I put a piece of tape on it and just put it into the Morse taper, and that should turn it fine without marking it. And now we just need to take that final bottom peg down to the appropriate size. We'll do that again with the beading and parting tool. And take a very light cut. You guys know how much I love to teach, or I wouldn't be making these videos. So I do teach lessons in my shop. If you live in the Atlanta area, you got relatives in the Atlanta area, or you're just traveling through, check it out. Details on my webpage.